Cities are the lifeblood of our economy, housing 50% of the population and generating 80% of GDP. But they also account for over 70% of global carbon emissions. By 2050, 70% of people will live in cities, pressuring energy infrastructures to evolve. This is a daunting challenge, but there is a silver lining: energy efficiency. Tried and tested solutions that have been operational for decades. Now it's time we implement these solutions at scale. We're at the cusp of one of the biggest energy transformations of our time, doable only through cooperation at an unprecedented level. But it can be done. Join us in building the resilient cities of tomorrow, today.
Hi, and welcome to this broadcast where experts on energy and sustainable city development will discuss how we can implement and also scale the solutions that are already available. My name is Catarina Rolfsdotter. I'm a journalist and program host focusing on sustainable development, primarily climate action. And during this broadcast, please take the advantage of chatting with our experts. The broadcast now will be about implementation and commitment, because we do need commitment in order to meet our climate targets, right? So let's now listen to what Mark Watts, who is Executive Director at C40's Cities Climate Leadership Group, and let's hear what he has to say about this very important topic.
Hello everyone, I'm Mark Watts. I'm the Executive Director of C40. Really sorry I can't be with you today, but I'm delighted to be able to participate, albeit virtually, in the Alfa Laval Sustainable Cities event. I thought the clear, straightforward message from the Sustainable Cities event at COP28 was, we've already got the technologies, we've got public leadership, we've got private sector leadership, we need to bring it all together, we need to collaborate. City governments have got a really big role to play in the energy transition, because it's their regulation that's going to create and shape the markets that are going to drive us in that direction. And we need that good, clear, strong regulatory legislative signal that we're getting in cities like Washington DC or New York or Tokyo. New York's a great example where there's a really strong regulation that essentially requires that all of the skyscrapers across the city are now retrofitted. But they also, Barcelona, Seoul, cities that are retraining a workforce so that everybody can see that there's jobs for them, opportunity, benefits for them in this transition. I think district heating, district cooling has got a big role to play, just for the simple physics of the fact that you're taking out a multitude of inefficient individual boilers and replacing them with a combined system that reduces waste and losses. But obviously it needs to be supplied by clean energy, and we need to make sure that they're taking advantage of the resources that are already available. We're seeing great innovation, the way that Hong Kong is using seawater to bring into its cooling system, or right here where I am in London, underneath my feet in fact, there's a district heating system that now takes waste heat from the tube, the underground. We need scale, because we've got to halve emissions within now the next 6 years by 2030, so we've got to move very fast. That, in fact, is what C40 is all about. It's taking a great idea, a great regulation, a great business innovation that's being delivered in one city, and then transplanting it all around the world so we get much better economies of scale, and markets everywhere can see the direction of travel very quickly. The biggest obstacles that we see is first, the current lack of volume demand for technologies that we can see are big parts of the solution, so heat pumps in particular, means that prices are still too high for lots of building owners to really consider them. So we need to get together, get some aggregation of demand that then brings down the price through large volumes of sales. The other is, it's the workforce being ready for what is going to be a massive transition. So we need a lot of investment now to train people to be able to make the transition from their current jobs, supporting the fossil fuel industry, to helping in moving to renewable energy and retrofitting of buildings. The responsibility of city government, I think, is straightforward. Science-based targets set a really clear direction, strong regulation, make sure the market knows exactly where the public sector is leading. And the responsibility of industry is similar actually. We need science-based targets just the same, but also I think there's a real responsibility to not allow industry organisations to campaign to hold back strong regulation for the transition to clean energy and retrofitting of buildings, but individual companies to make sure that the collective voice is pushing the public sector in that direction as well as waiting for the pull. One of the big solutions we need is quite simple, and it's more collaboration, because we haven't got time now for everybody to have to invent for themselves. We need city governments to be working with each other in networks like C40, so that when one city has developed a regulation that really works to drive a market faster to the emission reduction targets that we need to see, allow new technologies to enter at a faster pace and scale, that they copy that and adopt it right around the world rather than trying to reinvent it themselves. And I think the same when it comes to collaboration between city government and between industry, many of which operate across many different cities, different continents. Let's come together and apply the same high standards that are in place in one continent to all of the other places where that business works. Well, I'm really excited to hear the outcomes of the Alfa Laval studio discussion. You know, this is daunting in many ways. We're talking about massive system change in a very short space of time, but it's also incredibly exciting because all of us in our professional lives have got a real chance to make a difference in shaping a better future for everyone. So really looking forward to hearing the outcomes of the discussion.
It's now my pleasure to introduce Julien Ganetier, Vice President Energy Division at Alfa Laval, and Anna Hall, Head of Public Affairs Energy Division at Alfa Laval. So starting with you, Anna, which would you say are the main takeaways from COP28 that we can now build on moving forward?
Yes, I think it was a very important COP, and I think tripling up the renewables and doubling down energy efficiency is a very, very important decision and message. We had a very nice session around sustainable cities, where we gathered the policymakers, industry, the cities, the players, and we all concluded that the solutions are already there. And now it's time to implement at scale. No more talking, no more awareness, but implementation. So that was very hands-on, and that's actually why we're gathering here today. And also what we saw is that the cities will be very important change agents in reaching doubling the rate of energy efficiency implementation. So therefore, it's very important that we have the forerunners, the brave decisions, and the determination.
Well, thank you very much, Anna Hall. Julien Ganetier, what would you say from your perspective is the main takeaways that you can build on?
I think building on what Anna says, we have decided now and committed on action to double down on energy efficiency, and taking that into the city require immediate actions from all the different players in the value chain. That's why we are extremely happy to have here today a representative from all the different components of the value chain, because we need to connect the dots in order to make it happen at scale now. The other element is also that for cities, the prerequisite of each city might be different. The source of heat can be different. It could be an industry, it can be a data center. The source of cooling can be different. It can be a river, it can be a sea. And then all the building blocks need to come together in order to find the right sustainable solution for the future. So that's why we're very happy today to have experts with the right competence and the right commitment to make it happen across the value chain.
Well, thank you so much for setting the stage here. Thank you. Let's now take a look what is already happening in this field and share some good examples.
In cities across the globe, the future of energy efficiency is unfolding before our eyes. Once heavy energy consumers, these urban landscapes are becoming sustainability models, a development made possible thanks to the pioneering efforts of courageous companies leading the way. From the depths of Paris, where the river Seine's chill waters cool the city, to Barcelona, where the heating and cooling network soon will increase energy efficiency by 30% and reduce CO2 emissions by 450,000 tons annually. Meanwhile, Hamburg demonstrates the power of waste heat recovery, turning industrial byproducts into a source of warmth for 20,000 homes, with a potential CO2 reduction of 100,000 tons per year. Southern Sweden offers a glimpse into the synergy of interconnected cities like Helsingborg and Lund, where district heating sources range from industrial waste heat to 100% renewable sources. Across Europe, substantial investments in district energy are being made, where London is one of many vibrant cities embracing decentralized networks for its journey to net zero. These initiatives exemplify the shift towards sustainability and highlight the role of cities as architects of their energy future, creating cleaner and greener spaces for generations to come. As we're now doubling the rate of energy efficiency implementation, the message is clear. The technology exists, the projects are underway, and the impact is real. Together, we can scale up these solutions and build the energy-efficient cities of the future.
We will now move on and discuss how we can implement the solutions at scale. And with me in the studio, I have experts who can reflect on this from their perspectives. And a very warm welcome to Phil McDermott. You are City Energy Transformation Lead at E.ON UK. And Anna Ekdahl, you are Director Energy Intensive Industries at Ramböll Energy Transition. And Sezgin Karir, you are Group CEO at Kraftringen here in Lund. So from your perspective, let's start with you, Sezgin. Business as usual is not fast enough. So how do we speed up the implementation of the solutions at hand?
Yeah, I think there are different answers to that, but I will pick two of them. And I think one that is very important is there are fairly good amount of good examples out there that are already implemented. To lift them up and to show them is a big step forward. So the entire world and Europe can see that there are good implementations that support and help both climate issues, but also efficiency issues. And the second one is, I see it from my industry perspective, regulation and policies that support long-term investments is very important as well.
Thank you. Anna, your perspective, please.
Yeah. So apart from what Sezgin was already mentioning, I see two main things. So the first one is if we want to go faster, we need to standardize. And that goes for many parts, but particularly business models, the way I see it. And the second part is around collaboration, because we need to do this together. It takes some time. So start these dialogues right now, because then things will move much quicker when we identify the business cases.
Excellent. Phil, your take.
For me, yes, collaboration and partnerships are absolutely key to driving pace and scale. It's collaboration between an energy company and the city, and that on a strategic level for the long term provides the perfect conditions for investment to develop large-scale projects and to bring in very many different stakeholders and communities into that partnership and deliver benefits for the whole city from an economic and from a social basis, as well as from an energy point of view.
So Phil, what would you say are the main obstructions to a stronger uptake of district heating and cooling?
I think for heating and cooling, the key drivers for getting scale are the density of the city and the density of connections that are available from an economic point of view, and also regulation and confidence. So effectively regulation to provide confidence to customers that their rights will be protected and they'll get a competitive price for their heat, and also that the right conditions are created that enable organisations to invest, for example, as a zone for development for a heat network.
Thank you. So Saskia, in order to get this really faster implementation, we need pipes in the ground, right? So how do we make this happen? More pipes in the ground.
Yeah, I think one way of doing it is actually looking at what we have done here in Lund. There's a new district being developed with a huge research facilities. So we have developed, there's an innovation, so we have developed a new generation of district heating system based on low temperature. That is one way of doing it. The second way, I would say, making cities and the developers aware of the potential in district heating, that is the other way, I would say. But the innovation part is important, and to show that example that I just mentioned is lowering actually the threshold.
So it's basically a sort of an industrial symbiosis that's happening here in this area.
Yeah, we are cooperating with the research facilities, but also the developers together with the city. But in the bottom, we have a new innovation that is actually making it cheaper and easier to roll out district heating. And we're actually taking care of the excess heat that would otherwise be cooled out to the atmosphere, and taking care of it and heating the city and the areas around the city.
Thank you. So Anna, from the consultancy perspective here, from Rambo's perspective, how do we facilitate this faster, the pipes in the ground?
Sharing knowledge, of course, from different, both different sectors, but also different companies and parts of the world. I mean, these are technologies that are still developing, but that have been in place for many decades. So taking best practices and spreading the word, I think, is crucial. And of course, as a consultant, that's also part of what we do. That's the main point.
Thank you. So in terms of scaling the solutions, who would you like to direct a call to action, Phil?
I think in terms of scaling solutions, strategic partnerships are absolutely key. And I think the call to action is for cities to really see the opportunities in terms of the opportunities that energy companies can bring to that, the opportunities that industry can bring through innovation with the local academia and through other forms of education in the city, the opportunities that it can create to support and develop local supply chains and create jobs. So the energy transition for a city can achieve huge benefits in terms of growth.
So it's really about lifting the good examples to elevate what's really happening that works for many players in the field of sustainable cities.
Absolutely.
So Saskia, call to action, who would you like to direct it to?
I think all of us have a responsibility, I would say, all of us. But if we anyway try to be a little bit more specific, I would say, as was mentioned earlier, together to have coupling and to cooperation with the industries and the city together is one way. But then call for action is actually the most important thing for me. Is when you look at heating and district heating, the solutions are and the possibilities, potential is everywhere, but it's not exactly the same. To have policies and conditions that support the local strengths is important.
Thank you. And I guess you see that all the time, that it's not really the same depending on where you set your foot, so to speak. So
Yes.
what would be your call to action?
So if I choose one, then it comes back to the collaboration part. And we have mentioned in industrial waste heat several times in this conversation so far, and this is key. If we really want to go sustainable, this is key to achieving it. So for industry to be aware of the potential that they have to share industrial waste heat, and for these collaboration discussions to take place. So reach out to your energy company, to third-party actors, understand what the potential is.
Excellent advice. Well, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your insights. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's now focus on collaboration across the value chain and also on standardization. And I'm joined by Ulf Gerkens, who's Executive Vice President, Corporate Energy and Climate Affairs at Arubis. Welcome to the studio. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on these topics here. Let's focus a bit about waste heat recovery. And let's start with you, Ulf, in terms of the role it plays in the sustainable city. What do you have to say? I know you have great examples from Hamburg.
Well, in Hamburg, we have a big project that we deliver to the city of Hamburg, about 500 million kilowatt hours of heat every year. This is CO2-free heat, because before this, we used the River Elbe to cool down this heat, and we can deliver this today with an exothermic reaction, so CO2-free to the city.
It's an excellent example. And Arubis, for those who might not know, it's a copper smelting factory that's been around in Hamburg for many years, right?
156 years now.
That's
yes.
Quite impressive. And Anna, what examples do you have of good examples of waste heat recovery in the system here?
So we work a lot with these types of solutions and clients. So it's a very big range of different industrial actors. But I would point out that there is a lot of development towards the data center sector. There's a lot of greenfield investments in data centers, and regulation is coming in this space as well, that they have to make use of or at least investigate how they can make use of excess heat. So that is one important industrial sector. But we see a lot of interest from industry. It also goes hand in hand with what's been happening in the wake of the war in Ukraine with the gas crisis, where now customers are pushed even more into finding another solution, which often entails a higher level of security of supply than their previous gas solution. And then excess heat or waste heat solution come into play.
And Phil, I know you have great examples too from the UK.
Absolutely. So the principle that we're trying to achieve through waste heat recovery is a circular one. It's a circular economy for energy, effectively. And in London, we have our technology that we developed in Sweden called Ectogrid, which is under deployment in Silvertown at a development just right near the River Thames in the north of the city. And the principle that takes is we deliver waste heat connected to heat pumps and chillers, and we're able to connect buildings up to provide them with the heat and chill demand that they require at a much lower carbon intensity than would otherwise be the case with more traditional forms of heating. And the beauty of the solution, it's very easy to deploy and cheap to deploy, and it utilises the heat sources and the heat storage in the ground before extracting it for use locally. So it has the ability to connect up a lot of different sources of waste heat in a very economic and sustainable way.
So what would you say are the success factors in facilitating this collaboration? What made them sort of really come together, the players here?
I think there's a common, typically in partnerships, I mean, in its collaboration that drives the success of this type of project, and having a commonality in goals and strategy to achieve sustainability across all organisations is key to success, because it's only in that way that you can, and by finding the people that are thinking in the same way and that want to achieve similar goals, that you can achieve them together, and by working together, we can achieve a lot more scale and connectivity than we would otherwise be able to do.
Thank you. So in terms of standards, from your perspective, what do we need to facilitate here in terms of changing the standards or implementing standards?
For example, in our heat project, also a very interesting additional advantage was that we saved millions of cubic meters of cooling water, which we used before. Yes, so, and I think every heating project has to be another advantage as well. Yes, what we have to change a little bit is the behavior of the regulation with this, because we need also the help for industrial heat. See in Germany, for example, if all the industrial heat which is there could be used, we would save 125 terawatt hours
That's
of heat every year and save 37 million tons of CO2 every year as well.
So Anna, and in the scaling here, your perspective on standards, the importance of standards.
So I think it's been pointed out before that in many cases the solutions themselves need to be tailor-made depending on the actual location of the solution and what the production portfolio in the district heating looks like, and the waste heat, what kind of temperatures and when is it delivered, all these things. But there are parts around technology that can be standardized, but I would really like to point out towards the business model, because often we have two very different industries coming into discussion or negotiation with very, very different history and background. And so to be able to understand each other, if we can standardize and be very clear about how you get paid, how you build the business case, and how you measure things, then these discussions will be facilitated. So.
Excellent input. Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you very much, Ulf, and thank you very much, Phil. Thank you. Let's hear another expert's perspective on this topic, and welcome Neil Perry. You are Global Head of District Energy here at Alfa Laval. So in terms of waste heat recovery and the role of value chains in implementing this, what is your take here, please?
Waste energy is crucial. We waste so much, 40 to 60% of all the energy required in buildings. So it's essential that we capture that and we don't waste it. No longer is that acceptable. So we have to, district energy is the facilitator to capture that. And that's really what we need to focus on. With district energy, pipes in the ground first, as the standard that goes on, and then we can capture that waste energy and utilize it fully and not send it to atmosphere.
Great. So how about standardization? What role does this play here?
Oh, well, standardization, of course, can mean many things in many areas. But we need to standardize because we have two different disciplines here. We have the energy provider, we have the energy provider to the district energy system, we have the process that's producing that waste heat, and we need to have a contract between the two, a performance contract. And I think because this is a new area, we need some standards there where we can ensure that we speed up that collaboration and that coming together to actually process the system and get it working as fast as possible. We don't have time anymore.
So Neil, how, in terms of call to action and scaling the solutions, what would you say?
We certainly still need to elevate district energy in the mindset of everybody, so they can realise the benefits that brings. And I think there's a big amount of education that's required, a big amount of training, and really make it the thing that everyone thinks about straight away. This is the first thing we need to do. Let's implement it. How do we do it? So it's that awareness that we really need to drive in the industry, I think.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Thank you. Let's now focus on policies and financial instrument. And with me, I have three more experts here. And let's start to introduce with Aurélie Beauvais. You are Managing Director of Euroheat and Power. And Arubis Ufgerkens, Executive Vice President, Corporate Energy and Climate Affairs. And also, of course, from ENGIE, we have Olivier Raclet, and you're Head of Business Platform, District Heating and Cooling. So I'd like to start with you, Olivier. In terms of excess heat, should it be classified as renewables? And if, why?
So the answer about the excess heat is that we have to reuse the excess heat rather than consuming, energy that could come from outside or that we could import. So yes, we have to focus on reusing the excess heat. We have to comply with the first principle of the European Commission, which is energy efficiency first. So reuse what exists locally and reuse it in order to feed the district energy systems. So yes, my belief is that we should classify the excess heat or the waste heat, which is inevitably released into the atmosphere, as sources of energy as renewable energy. Yeah.
Thank you. So Aurélie, from your perspective at EU Euroheat and Power, what role does government policies have to play in rolling out more district heating and cooling?
I think their role is absolutely essential. So first, I would start with reputation. It's very important, to give to this type of project the visibility they deserve, and also acknowledge pioneering project, state-of-the-art companies or industries. And that's today one of the main drivers that we see. But of course, reputation does not pay the bill. So then you need to look at regulation, indeed, how you make those projects profitable for district heating and cooling utilities, but also people that are going to supply their climate neutral heat sources. So I think we're looking at the power of having de minimis requirements for efficiency, circularity, system integration and waste heat recovery, but also incentives. It's important that it's not only punitive, so financial incentives in particular are needed.
And do you agree with Olivier on the classification?
I think from a policy perspective, we've seen that the attempt to try to classify it as renewable has raised a lot of opposition, because from the NGO side in particular, they're really, demanding renewable is something very specific for them. So I don't know if it is really what we should do to classify it as renewable, but I think that we should classify it, whatever the category, as something that is acknowledged as efficient from a climate perspective as renewables are. So it can be a different name, but the climate impact is here.
For Olivier's and your perspective, do you find that it's difficult for you to find talent and to train the right people?
I think probably, Olivier, from an industry perspective, you'd have a view.
So yeah, let me start on that one. So not only we are experiencing an energy transition, but we are experiencing a technology revolution, which is in fact very attractive for the youngest generation, if I may. So I do believe that our activity should be able to attract people in the near future. I have to admit that more and more we have to work more closely with the education sector, not only the high school, but all the education sector, about training people about what is energy, what is the future of energy, what is our activity and the benefits of our activity. But again, I do believe that we do experience a very good period of time in terms of, interest, technology, and technology revolution, which is very attractive for the young people.
That's hopeful. So Aurélie, I'd like to finish off this session by asking you call to action to implement the scaling of the solutions here.
Of various calls, I would say. I mean, from the city perspective, I think that really we need to have this enabling framework at European level, definitely, but also at government level. We've seen that when countries like recently Germany, Austria, or the Netherlands are really putting forward ambitious target for the deployment of district heating and cooling, giving clarity on the size of the market, and also giving clarity to different stakeholders, whether it's a district heating utility or an industry, on how they can do it, how they can collaborate, what type of support they can benefit from. It really tremendously unlocks the opportunities.
So in terms of frameworks and policy changes, what would you like to point out here?
Well, see, copper is the material for the transformation. You need copper for all this windmills, for the grid, for the electric vehicle, all these things. So we have to save copper production also in Germany and in Europe. And for this, many politics think that CBAM, cross-border adjustment mechanisms, is the solution. But it is not. Because, for example, there is no export article. And because this is in confrontation with the WTO. And this has to be solved very quick, that CBAM is really a solution also for the copper industry, because the copper industry needs a level playing field. Copper costs the whole world the same price. And so we cannot transfer any additional costs to our customers.
So if you produce copper the way you're doing now, the Rubius, with the great climate perspective, it's not really viable for you to export it during the circumstances that we have now, in terms of financial circumstances.
Exactly, because our prices are higher, and we have a very low carbon footprint, especially in our company, our Rubis. the average of the world is 2.5 times higher than our carbon footprint.
So that's a call to action to the politicians.
Yeah.
Well, excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us in this session. Thank you. Energy efficient buildings and the holistic view of the energy system is the topic for this panel. And I'm delighted to have with me here Małgorzata Murczynska, President Brazed and Fusion Bonded Heat Exchangers from Alfa Laval. And from Kraftringen, I have Sezgin Kadir, Group CEO. And Aurélie Beauvais, you are a Managing Director of Euroheat and Power. So I'd like to start with you, Sezgin. You have great examples of how we facilitate the intake of district heating and cooling in the system here in Lund. So what success factors do you have here?
Yeah, I think what I would like to mention is that we have seen very clear increase of connection to the district heating from different areas in Lund, but also in our entire area in southern Sweden. But the other thing is actually I would like to mention is we are developing a new district in northern Lund, and there we have developed a new system, an innovative district heating system, which is based on low temperature, and that system is taking care of the excess heat that is being generated in that area, and together with the property developers, we have cooperated and developed a system, and that has increased the appetite of connecting the entire area to the district heating system.
It's a great example. Małgorzata, I'd like to ask you about there's been some talk about the conflict here, if there is a conflict between residential heat pumps as well as industrial heat pumps when it comes to building stock and also district energy. Why is that, and what is your take on this?
I think now when especially the need to reduce the carbon emission is growing, going away from fossil fuel is crucial. So I don't think there is any conflict actually. Today's the heat pumps are the valuable solution to replace existing boilers in reality. And if you will take the heat pumps, they can be 3 to 4 times more efficient. It means that they can produce 3 to 4 times more energy than they consume the electricity. Here, even in Lund, we have the industrial heat pumps, which is recovering the heat from the oil in the pressing operations. And it can cover 80% of the energy which is needed for heating the water and the buildings. So definitely this is the contemporary solutions also to the district heating. In fact, according to the International Energy Agency, using the heat pumps, we can cut CO2 emission by 500 million tons in 2030, which is equivalent to the annual CO2 emissions of entire European automotive fleet. So the heat pumps is really quite a hot commodity now, which can be absolutely complementary to the district heating.
Thank you. So really, what is your perspective here on this? Is there a conflict or is it more of a complement?
No, I would totally go for the complementarity. And I think we also actually love heat pumps in district heating. So it's just really a matter of size. And here I think it's not even, I'm not even sure there is such thing as a competition, because I think in the end, it's about what solution is the most relevant for what type of building in which type of urban environment. So as long as you stop taking buildings as kind of disconnected assets and you reintegrate them in their urban environment, you look at nearby sources, whether it's renewable or waste heat, you look really at the ecosystem, then you find very naturally what is the most suited solution. And that's something where we see, I mean, as Małgorzata said, the resources, for example, for renewable and waste heat are enormous. In Europe, it's about 2,000 terawatt-hour per year. So it would be a waste not to use it, and we simply need larger units for that. And for all the rest, individual solutions will play the trick.
Well, thank you both for clarifying this. Should it be free to connect to district heating and cooling, Sezgin?
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, and
free of choice, not free, but free of choice.
Yeah, no, it's. So I understand you. So it should be free of choice, because I think in the way we're working, we're not forcing anyone to connect, but we are delivering a product or a solution that is both efficient from energy point of view, climate point of view, but also from value point of view. So I would say no. We should compete and deliver an excellent solution, and we don't need to force anyone to connect to the system.
Any other thoughts on this aspect?
I think maybe rather than free of choice, I think you should be free to disconnect, rather, maybe in a different approach, because it's true that for district heating, it's very important, I think, to have this critical mass of consumers to know in the first step that you're going to be able to connect a minimal amount of buildings, for example. And if you have to go from consumers one by one, it may complicate that. And on the other hand, I'm not sure consumers want to choose a technology. I think consumers want to have criteria which are satisfied, like affordability or comfort or security. And as long as you can provide that, I'm not sure they care about what really is heating their building, including for sustainability. So they should simply be able to disconnect if they don't want it. But I think that area planning and having this type of district approach still require to some extent making a choice also for certain buildings and consumers.
Interesting perspective. So to conclude, any call to actions from you that you would like to send off into the audience here in terms of this topic?
I think one thing that I would like to add to the last question is actually not the end customers, but when the cities and new developments and new districts are planned, then the developers and the cities should think about the efficiency and what district heating is providing. That is a call for action from my point of view, to think about it and to plan it in the basic infrastructure.
Thank you very much.
I think on my side, the district approach, so really to have these area-based renovation programs in cities which combine building renovation and heating and cooling plans, and maybe another call to action which is to look at building renovation differently. I think we've been focusing also in the past a lot of top performance, A++ buildings, and what we see, at least to grow the district heating and cooling market, is that it's probably sometimes better to go from G to C and to make maybe the worst performing building everywhere better, but not necessarily perfect. And just with that, you can actually expand the potential of connection to more efficient district heating systems.
Would you like to add?
Yeah, just to add to this, I think very important is to prioritize the optimization and the reuse of heat. This can really lead the green transformation in all the sectors, in the transport sector, also in the industry, and it can help us really to deliver on the targets which was set in the Paris Agreement and then reinforced on the COP. But I think also the very important is to start to build awareness among the normal people, among the industry, starts to speak concrete language. So this is very, very important. And then we will not have the debate what is better, if it is the complementary solution or not. I think when we will build the awareness, then we will have the choice, like it was said here. Yes.
Well, excellent. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. Let's now focus on district cooling in the sustainable city. And welcome, Neil Perry. You are Global Head of District Energy at Alfa Laval and Managing Director of EU Heat and Power, Olivier Beauvais. And from ENGIE, Olivier Raclé, Head of Business Platform District Heating and Cooling. So cooling is the fastest growing use of energy in buildings. So I'd like to start with you, Neil. What is driving the market here?
I think there's a number of things, really. Certainly, as the climate warms, we need more cooling. We have cities are expanding, and the heat island effect of cities is increasing that ambient temperature. So there's a number of factors that are affecting the growth of district cooling.
So what impact does this have on the global carbon footprint? And Aurelie, I'd like to turn to you because you have this overall perspective. And how can we tackle this with this aspect of district cooling and what the benefits of it?
I mean, one clear aspect is simply that we're looking at an exponentially growing demand. I mean, another element is really we sometimes focus on Europe, but we need to realize that also the increasing level of revenues, notably in emerging markets, for example, is driving a huge growth in demand. And we're looking at economies which are also not decarbonized, just like us. So to give you an example, in India, today 11% of the Indian population is owning an air conditioner. In 2050, it's supposed to be 85%. And we're looking at a huge population. So just that is driving the CO2 impact, but then you also have clearly the fact that it's putting pressure today on the electricity demand. And what happens when you have electricity peak demand is usually you need to activate peaking assets, which in this case are fossil assets. So that's a problematic element.
So Olivier, what is your perspective on district cooling? How do you work with district cooling?
So as mentioned by Aurélie, the cooling demand is expected to triple by 2050. So we have to tackle with this, to be honest with you, since all those systems are in fact powered by electricity. And depending on the electricity content, this could lead to more and more CO2 emission. So we have to think about efficient cooling systems rather than autonomous systems which are not that much efficient. We have to think about free cooling. We have to think about as well waste heat that could provide us with some cooling as well with some heating. So we have to think about more and more efficient solution in order to tackle with the CO2 emission which are related to the cooling sector.
Thank you, Olivier. So do we have any good examples here from your end, Neil? Can this really work?
I think there are a lot of examples. I mean, as Olivier has just mentioned, it brings into play free cooling from rivers, from lakes, from the sea, and we're doing that in many different countries into many systems. And we have to remember that with district cooling, things are a little bit different in that the power capacity is generally larger, the delta T is smaller, and because of that, the focus really needs to be on having those systems very, very efficient, because the potential is really high in a cooling system to use a lot of energy. So it needs to be efficient. And we have a number of examples in lots of countries, as I say, that where we're doing that and it's working really well. But it's something we need to constantly work at, improving those systems and the efficiency of district cooling.
And there could be other side effects, like how you heat your water, right?
That's right. Obviously, with cooling, the return temperature is high. Hopefully, the higher the better, as we're removing that heat that we need that's in the building. So we're taking that away. And then that, in a country like India, for instance, can provide free hot water. It doesn't matter which country you look at. If there's a thermal difference, then we can play in that arena and we can use it to heat, to cool, to provide hot water. It really doesn't matter. That thermal difference is the key aspect.
Excellent, thank you. So Aurélie, in terms of other beneficial factors here and benefits beyond the environmental gains, what could that be?
I think that the environmental gains are already very, very significant. I mean, I don't know, in general, having more collective solutions in terms of security of supply, for example. I mean, we see that the cooling demand curve is likely to follow the same pattern as the heating demand curve, just at a different point in time. So that means very huge variations, very short in time, which today, in a world where you don't have so much controllable, for example, production assets, is still a challenge. Our system is not flexible enough to really fully decarbonize this type of demand. So here, looking at district cooling solutions, which are more efficient, so you have lower primary energy needs, but it also enables you to diversify in a way your cooling mix. So you make your system more flexible, more resilient, and so that means cities that can be more secure also in the long run.
And of course, it also has aspects of health, because I know just in France, in the last big heat wave, thousands of people died from heat exhaustion and didn't have access to cooling. So how do we communicate the benefits here to the policymakers and to the city policymakers here to really connect the district cooling here and the systems? What would you say, Olivier?
It's a tough discussion. You're totally right that, for instance, in the Middle East or Southeast Asia, space cooling is a given, for sure. But in Europe, we do expect the cooling demand to boom and to grow significantly in the near future. Since, as you mentioned it, 20 years ago in France, we did experience a hot wave, and 50,000 people died due to the hot wave and the extreme weather condition. So at the time being, you mentioned what is a driving market. I would say for Europe, it might be health. And it might be the necessity to connect all the schools, hospitals, or buildings that are welcoming or hosting public in order to provide some health condition and better condition when experiencing hot waves, for instance, in Europe. So, yeah, health could be the driven market in Europe. And we have to raise the awareness of those systems, those efficient systems. And again, another benefit is really that those systems are much more efficient. The benefits of pulling the demand is smoothing a little bit the demand, and so that you are avoiding lots of peak. The counts of the cooling demand is that it's a peak demand. So you need some peak demand, and you have to produce the cooling to meet the cooling demand. And another benefit of this is that we are smoothing a little bit the demand, and so that we are reducing quite a lot the strains on the electricity grid, and so that we sustain as well the electricity grid for more resiliency of the electricity grid at the European level. So we have to make this clear to the European Commission and to follow up on the development on this solution.
Indeed. So Neil, I would like to ask you to send us off with a call to action to the policymakers here as how to implement more district cooling.
It's an awareness of that health problem. Coming from the UK, we had 42 degrees last summer. It's no longer, you can no longer deny it's happening. We always had the statistics that said climate is warming, but now we can actually see it for real.
Feel it. Yeah.
And we need to address that really quickly. And so for me, it's connecting with the health benefits, because this is a health issue, and we're all aware of the pandemic. And we were seeing every night that we're talking about how many people have died and what. We don't do that with climate change. We really should. We need to be there, right front and centre, saying this is what's happening now because of the changing climate, and that will really focus attention, focus minds, and hopefully result in action.
Well, excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And there's just one more thing I'd like to focus on here, since collaboration is crucial. What a great example of collaboration. And with me here to conclude this broadcast is Anna Hall and Julien Genetier. And I would like to ask you, what is your main takeaway from today?
Yes, what a wonderful day. I think it was a very, very nice gathering, and I'm very warm in my heart to see all these experts bringing their knowledge to the table. And something that's really clear to me that I bring with me is that the cities, they are really in the driver's seat here, and that there is a whole value chain of industry, energy companies, consultants ready to support this transformation. That I think is very important and clear from today. And secondly, I also bring with me how we emphasize on think of energy in a holistic way. We need to think electricity and heat. We can't afford to waste heat and let it go out in the atmosphere. We really need to take care of everything, and that was very clear today, I think.
Thank you, Anna Hall. Julien Genetier, what is your main takeaway?
I would say what was clear to me was that investing in district energy, whether it's heating or cooling, is about creating jobs locally. It's also about strengthening the competitiveness of the local economy, the local industries, the local factories that are operating in the city. It is also clear from the many examples brought by the experts and the experience that they brought to the table that the solutions already exist today. So it's just about starting the implementation.
Mm-hmm. So what would your call to action be?
I think it's simple. Let's start the transformation today.
That's a good call to action. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching.
When we developed our first heat exchanger, 600 million people lived in cities. Today, that number has grown to 4.4 billion. Making cities the #1 contributor to global carbon emissions. This needs to change. And it can. In fact, some cities started decades ago. We've built our know-how through collaboration with these early adopters. Together, we've developed the solutions of tomorrow decades before their prime. Now, it's time to implement these solutions at scale. Join us in building the sustainable cities of tomorrow, today.